house is burning. Oh man, okay, I am getting griefed. Oh man. Oh, Grasser, you're still alive. Okay, that's good, okay. Oh, but my house, dude, my house. Man, hopefully there's still stuff in the dupe station. That's why I came out here and... Oh, wait, there's a guy here. What the heck? Wait, I don't have anything to protect. Oh, dude, what the heck? No. Yep, my base got found. You may be wondering how this happened. Well, to understand, let's start at the beginning. My base's origins go all the way back to my first days on 2B2T. During the Russia War in late 2016, I joined 2B2T and wanted to travel a long distance to create a base. Like many others, I died a lot escaping spawn, but eventually I got very far. However, I would die from a zombie and stop playing on 2B2T for a few months. During the middle of 2017, I played on Omega Realm, a server I grew up with, and was reminded of 2B2T when a player named Illusion mentioned playing on 2B2T and having a lot of gear. After talking to Illusion, he agreed to give me a shulker of gear to help me escape spawn. We would meet at a watermelon farm I found only a couple of thousand blocks away from spawn. After getting the shulker, I would venture on the nether highway for hours, and after making sure I left no tracks behind, I found a nice spot for my base. I wouldn't do much for almost a year because the server would be on a test map for a few months, and I would focus more on the Omega Realm with my friends and mostly forget about 2B2T. Around September of 2018, I would join 2B2T again and decided to build a house in an oak forest. This house was a schematic that I would use in multiple servers with friends throughout the years, and was perfect for the location. I would construct a cobblestone generator beneath the house, and repeatedly chop and replant trees. After getting the materials, I would build a house and add decoration inside. Around this time, lightning was enabled on 2B2T, and my house was mostly made out of wood. I didn't know it at the time, and my house got struck by lightning. After rebuilding, I decided to add a glass layer to the top of the house, and after hours of farming glass, it was completed. I was also starting to run out of food and other materials from my kit, so I had to improvise. I would set up a small farm next to the house, growing wheat, carrots, sugarcane, and other crops. I expanded the cobblestone generator beneath the farm to set up a brewery and AFK fishing farm. I built massive mob grinders out of the spare cobblestone I had, including one that resembles a bacteriophage and a pigment mob grinder that never worked. I would also tame a dog and name him Grassu, named after my real-life golden retriever. For the following weeks, I became bored with being millions of blocks away with nobody around and wanted to return to spawn to join a group. But first, I needed to gear up. I decided to enchant around 3 sets of diamond armor and used the remaining golden apples I had from my kit to use at spawn. I went back to the 00 water cube. I met a player named Wazy Vibes and asked him if he was in a group. He was the owner of the group Conquest, and their mission was to rebuild highways in the water cube. I would join Conquest and help rebuild spawn for a while, making new friends and enjoying various events. One day, a player in Conquest had a spare dupe stash that he didn't want, mainly due to someone finding it and taking most of the stuff. I asked him if I could have it, and he gave me the coordinates. Luckily, it was on the same axis of my base and was extremely close. However, who knew if anything was still there? It took me around 2 days to get there because I didn't have any proper gear, but when I arrived, it was worth it. The stash was looted, but there were still 20 shulkers filled with unbreakable armor with the name UFO Crossing Spawn Kits, and 7 books that were used to dupe. If I took the books, I could figure out a way to keep duping. I gathered everything and then traveled to my base. On January 14th, 2019, one of my friends from Omega Realm named EnderMQN said he also played on 2B2T. He had a base far out, but it was on the opposite axis of mine. When I told him I found dupe books, he suggested we meet up and dupe with the books. Neither of us knew how to use the chunk dupe, and we weren't sure if we had the right books or if we needed more. I told him the location of my base, and Ender would eventually make his way to the location. On the same day, he arrived and put additional shulkers of stuff to the second story of the house. The next day, I would start working on the Dupe station. I decided to build the station inside a hill, making a space for the resources we had and then filling it with chests. I would then make a room next to it for the chunk dupe location, as well as a tunnel leading away from it. The reason why I built it like this is because the chunk dupe worked by overloading a chunk with large file sizes, preventing the chunk from being saved. This was accomplished with the books that had large text characters inside. To dupe, you would build a tunnel, reload your chunks at the end, and then return to the duped chunk. Ender MQN eventually found a way to make it work and decided to create his own shulker called Ender MQN's Unbreakable Kit. He would dupe for days, and we would get richer and richer. After a few months, the chunk dupe would eventually be patched, but we duped so much that it didn't even matter. Ender MQN would become less and less active, and it would just be me at the base most of the time. I would go back to spawn and help Conquest repair spawn highways. After a few months, I would return to the base. I wanted to add more to it, so I built a mini train station from the house to the Dupe station. Near the Dupe station, I clearly remember building a train station while watching a YouTuber named Etika playing Undertale. I would then expand the railway to the ocean. I wanted to build an underwater dome that would lead to 4 different sections of the base. The dome took around a week to make. I first had to figure out how to make a glass dome, then build it and clear the water from within. Once that was done, I then connected the dome to the nearest land. After being inspired by another 2B2T base called Summermelon, I wanted to make the section medieval. On March 31st, I added a dock with a tiny boat and other objects scattered around. To add more life into the dock, 2 cranes would be constructed, as well as a staircase reaching up to the top of the hill. A few days later, Ender MQN came to see the progress and was impressed. Around this time, we would name the base Hamlet, which means a small village. On top of the hill, I would build a note block machine capable of playing MIDI songs. It worked with Future Client, a hack client, which has a module called Notebot. I would AFK for days with Notebot playing random songs so I wouldn't get disconnected. Adding to the hill, I built a castle entrance from another Minecraft server called Wingcraft. Inside, there was a lava fall room, which led to another room, which led to 3 further sections. One of the sections led to the Carpet Duper room. Around this time, carpet dupers could work, so I built a whole room to make a carpet duper for each color. With the carpets I had, I was able to make my first and only map art nearby, which is named Visual. Nothing else would really be added. A few towers, farms, and houses would be built, but it was just me most of the time. Another longtime friend, Jimyy, would join Hamlet, and we planned to build a castle, however we never did. I would keep my, at the time, main account really damn fast at Hamlet, while my now main account, FastVincent1, at Spawn to explore. From time to time, I would check on Hamlet, making sure everything was still intact, feeding Rasu, and then sitting in a chair and disconnecting. I would do this for years, and if I ever needed stuff, I would just go back to Hamlet and re-gear. On April 10th, 2022, while I was going back to Hamlet to re-gear, something interesting happened. Alright, I'm recording this just in case I get griefed. Hopefully I'm not. Alright, so far so good. My tree's still here. Oh! My house is burning. Oh man, okay, I am getting griefed. Oh man. Oh, Grasser, you're still alive! Okay, that's good, okay. Oh, but my house, dude, my house. Man, hopefully there's still stuff in the dupe station. That's why I came out here and... Oh, wait, there's a guy here, what the heck? Wait, I don't have anything to protect. Oh, dude, what the heck, no. I was astounded when I first met him. The astronomical odds of encountering someone at your base, which hasn't been discovered in 5 years, is a very low possibility. I didn't know if he was hostile or not, and I couldn't do anything since I was so weak. The reason I came out here was to re-gear. I didn't have any golden apples or fireworks to help me escape or protect myself. The only thing I could do was talk.
Yo, Hi. Who the freak are you? Are you just hunting?
I made this base. Did you just find it?
Yes, a few days ago.
Oh, cool.
Wait, who are you?
I'm the owner of this base. How did you find it?
I'm stash hunting.
Ah,
The sign said this is Ender MQN stash though.
yeah, he is my friend.
Are you YouTuber?
Do you still have the Ender MQN kits?
Yeah, some. Sign please.
At this point, I think I knew I was safe. He had no reason to kill me. While talking to him, I told him the story of this base, and he seemed to get more sad that he burnt the base down. However, I told him that it's okay. This is 2B2T after all. Stuff like this happens. Despite the fact that this base holds many memories for me, I recall all of the bases I've discussed on this channel. Crowbar's interdimensional bridge, for example. What did Crowbar do once he was killed and couldn't grieve his own base? He moved on and built a new base. What about NFE? What did players do when NFE was griefed numerous times? They rebuilt or relocated to other bases. Nothing lasts forever, and if you build a base on 2B2T, you should expect it to be discovered one day. About a day later, he decided to rebuild my house and build a tiny house for Grassu. We decided to split the stash. I would take most of Ender MQN's kits away from the base, and he would provide me coordinates to the place where he would be taking his kits. About a few days later, another player would find the base and take most of the items. Today, Hamlet remains mostly intact, and depending on when you see this video, you can probably still discover loot throughout the base. Will I create a new base? Most likely, though I'll probably wait until the server updates. What I learned from this experience is that no matter what, you keep going.